Kamala Khan, also known as Miss Marvel, is the 6th playable Avenger in the 2020 video game from acclaimed developer Crystal Dynamics. Up until now, we've known the main roster has consisted of series staples Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, and Hulk, with a tease of Hank Pym, aka Ant-Man, as a future DLC character. But today, it was revealed that the young Miss Marvel will join the aforementioned roster of 5 in the campaign. I actually got to play as her at New York Comic Con, and it was some of the most fun I've ever had in an action game. But before we get to that, I did go through the opening tutorial mission that the team showed off when debuting the game. The gameplay is serviceable and plays exactly how you think it does. It's visually stunning, partly due to the tremendous amount of physics happening on screen that causes some huge frame rate dips. The action also feels a little sticky. For example, as Thor, you'll swing Mjolnir at an enemy. There'll be a slight pause as the game registers the impact of the hammer hitting the goon, before completing the animation and dealing the damage. I'm not sure if this is a gameplay choice or a technical abnormality, but it didn't feel like that when I got to the Kamala gameplay later, which you can imagine was built more recently. Therefore, I assume it will play a lot smoother in the final product. One of the standouts I felt of the demo were the sound effects. Thanks to the MCU, you can hear in your mind the sound of Iron Man's repulsion blasts. But with Crystal looking to make this an entirely original Avengers, this Iron Man's repulses sound distinctively different. My favorite sound effect was the scream of the energy beam shooting from his chest reactor. It's raw and visceral, combined with the rumble of the controller and devastating animations of the affected enemies. It truly makes you feel like an Iron Man. This level of detail and immersion is applied across the entirety of the game's sound design. In terms of gameplay, I personally preferred the Hulk, chalked up in part to the controls generally feeling heavy, which matched the Green Beast nicely. Ultimately, the tutorial mission serves its purpose. It successfully gives you a taste of the controls and what each character is capable of. But the main game? Oh boy, is the main game an entirely different beast. If you've seen the opening mission, which takes place during an attack on A-Day, a holiday celebrating the Avengers, you'll know that it all ends in disaster. Cap is killed, the Avengers are blamed for the devastation, and the group disbands. 5 years pass, and in the outlawed hero's wake steps Advanced Idea Mechanics, or AIM. Their message simple: science over superheroes. This is when they made their big reveal. Kamala Khan is not only a huge part of the game, but a playable character in the main story. We first see her at the A-Day event, and it just so happens that the exploding Terrigen reactor that killed Cap is also the thing that gave her her powers. Scott Amos, Crystal Dynamics head of studio, and Hannah MacLeod, a narrative designer, made it clear that Kamala is the lens in which the player will experience the story, a fact that became obvious after watching a never-before-seen trailer. In the years since A-Day, Kamala has seemingly become the protege of Bruce Banner, and has stumbled upon proof that AIM set up the Avengers to take the fall for the outcome. The two take this information to Tony, who wants absolutely nothing to do with it, because he feels like people have already made up their minds that the Avengers were responsible. What stood out during this trailer was how well written all 3 of these characters were. The back and forth between Bruce and Kamala, the discussion they have with Tony after going to him, mixed that excellent blend of humor and drama that the movies are known for. However, these characters feel distinctively different. Yet again, another example of the originality but authenticity Crystal Dynamics is striving for. The trailer had me convinced that Kamala was an excellent addition to the roster, but playing as her had me certain that she will be the standout in the lineup. After the presentation, we sat back down at our gameplay stations and booted up the Holographic Augmented Reality Machine, or HARM for short, the training simulation you can use to test out characters and their abilities. From here, we went through 15 waves of a wide variety of AIM enemies, from foot soldiers to Evos and ultimately a 4-legged mech, which was a pain in the arse to take down. For those that aren't aware, Miss Marvel has polymorphic abilities, allowing her to change shape and size. This made for hands down some of the most fun I've ever had playing as a character in an action game. We were playing on a PS4 controller, and as such, our light and heavy attacks were mapped to the square and triangle buttons respectively. Holding down either button allowed for a charged attack, but what I loved was that there seemed to be levels to the charge, and the attack would differ depending on how long you were holding the button for and if you were in motion. A charge of of your heavy, while standing still, caused Kamala to thrust her giant fist forward, whilst a charge of your heavy in motion allowed for you to ram your enemies with your entire body. L2 allowed for you to aim, and R2 would stretch out Kamala's arms with a ranged punch. L1 and R1 were her abilities, which were on a recharge. L1 was an immediate healing boost, and R1 was the sonic palm, where Kamala's hand stretched to be as large as her body and shot out to crush any enemies in her path. Pressing both L1 and R1 when the gauge was full allowed for Kamala's embiggen power, where she grew to around 3 or 4 times her size, and all of her abilities became more powerful. And finally, the circle button was used to dodge, and if you whittled an enemy's health down enough, you could hit circle and triangle simultaneously for a takedown. All of this made for some truly exhilarating gameplay, with Ms. Marvel's powers making for an experience no one has really ever played before in a video game. As Kamala, I would dodge enemies' fire by stretching out a leg and quickly bringing the rest of my body in tow. A foot soldier was firing poisonous gas canisters as I was dealing with his fellow henchmen, so I quickly changed my focus to him. I leapt into the air, and an X prompt appeared right on the edge of the platform the enemy was firing from. I tapped the cross button, and Ms. Marvel's arm extended from across the room to latch onto the ledge and pull me into combat with the new adversary. I made quick work of him, knocking him into the air with a stretched leg sweep, followed up with a flurry of giant fists. With his health sufficiently depleted, I engaged a finisher, which caused Kamala to grab him by the shoulders and extend her arms, putting distance between the two of them. Her limbs then shrunk quickly back down to regular length and rapidly pulled him in for a giant knee to the gut. After waves and waves pushed me to mix up the abilities in interesting ways, I found some trouble as the previously mentioned 4-legged mech materialized before me. I hit both shoulder buttons, and Kamala embiggened to match the mech's size. The playing field leveled, Ms. Marvel went toe-to-toe with the machine, finishing it off by leaping into the air and hammer-fisting down on its hull. Once the fight was over, Kamala triumphantly returned to her regular size. The powers, the attacks, the abilities, they all made for truly unique gameplay that I think is going to be a massive hit with fans. It also gets me excited at all of the possibilities posited by other characters, such as Ant-Man, that this is going to make a game that offers an experience unlike anything else. After the gameplay demo, I wrapped up by having a conversation with the team and dove deeper on the game at large. There are 2 mission types, Hero and Warzone, which are accessible from the war table in a derelict helicarrier the reassembled Avengers use as their base. Single-player hero missions unfold the story and have a dedicated hero attached to them. Warzone missions are either single-player or multiplayer with up to 4 online. These can be tackled with any hero, although if you're in multiplayer there can't be duplicates of the same hero. A question brought up during the Q&A addressed whether certain areas of Warzone maps would be inaccessible without using certain characters, and Amos stated that they're aiming to not restrict the player in any such way. In addition, certain missions will expand specific character arcs, but can again be played with any hero, though the experience will differ slightly depending on your choice. Ultimately, Warzone missions are designed to help level up your heroes, as well as acquire new items to equip them with. Each character has their own skill tree to change and upgrade their abilities, as well as gear and outfits. Outfits change the look of your character, whilst gear is all about modifying their powers. You may be asking yourself, how do certain characters like the Hulk, the closest thing he has to gear being torn shorts, have modifiable gear? This was a difficult question for the team to answer and required diving deep into understanding these characters. The Hulk, for example, is a creature born of gamma radiation, so his gear are actually modifications to his gamma radiation exposure. Vince Napoli, lead combat designer, talked about modifying the Hulk's defensive abilities by infusing his spine with increased radiation, describing an overlay where we see an X-ray of the Hulk's bones. These menus will have tons of little flourishes like this. We saw footage of Iron Man upgrading his chest reactor, the character model giving it a slight rasp with his knuckles, as the new modification was equipped. Gear will also come from different sources, equipping Tony with All-Stark Industries gear, giving him an additional overall boost. Each character will also have a similar amount of gear, meaning certain characters won't be more modifiable than others. In terms of the skill tree, each hero will be equally unique. Iron Man will have a focus on equipping different weapons, whereas Hulk will have attributes such as how many people he can grab, and what specifically he can do to his victims. Kamala's skill tree will focus heavily on the types of shapes she can form with her body. These systems make it seem that Crystal wants players to come for the story and stay for the limitless tweaking of the heroes. I will be the first to admit that my initial impressions of Marvel's Avengers were lukewarm at best. When I saw the first gameplay demo at E3 with Tuna, he had put it aptly that it looked like a live-action version of LEGO Avengers. But I always knew that to truly understand the game I would need to play it, and now that I have, I can rest easier. The tutorial is as tutorially as you can get, but it's a 20-minute slice of a potentially limitless game that will add to its story and playable characters over time. From both a story and gameplay perspective, the team has an incredible character with Ms. Marvel, which can hopefully be applied to future heroes. Crystal Dynamics still has 7 months to Iron Man out the kinks in terms of performance, but it's clear that their usual devotion to detail and narrative is once again at work behind what the team believes to be a dream project, and that is ultimately what will make or break Marvel's Avengers.